Welcome everyone. I am Michele Gold, board chair at Holocaust Museum LA. Thank you all so much for joining us for today's discussion with Gabriella Karin, a Holocaust survivor who is a most treasured member of our museum community and a very dear and very special friend of mine. And I know today she is surrounded by a lot of love and a lot of friends all eager to hear from her. Gabriella has written a newly published memoir entitled Trauma, Memory, and the Art of Survival. Today, we will hear from Gabriella about what inspired her to write a memoir and about the experiences that she wanted to share with readers. But first of all, may I tell you briefly a little bit about our museum? Holocaust Museum LA is the first Holocaust museum in the United States, founded by survivors in 1961, who wanted to create a safe place to display their special artifacts in perpetuity and to remember their family members and their loved ones who had perished. Today, the museum continues to provide free Holocaust education to students and visitors from across Los Angeles, the United States, and the world, fulfilling the mission of our founding survivors to commemorate, educate, and to inspire. Holocaust Museum LA brings you programs like today's at no charge. So if you are enjoying our programs, we ask that you consider supporting our work by going to holocaustmuseumla.org and to make a donation. At the end of Gabriella's presentation, we will have time for questions. So if you do have a question, please type it in the Q&A box. And now it is my pleasure and an enormous privilege for me to introduce Gabriella Karin. Gabriella was born in 1930 in Bratislava, Czechoslovakia. She is a Holocaust survivor who has dedicated much of her life to educating students about the Holocaust, speaking in museums, schools and synagogues, and other venues. Gabriella is also a long-time docent at Holocaust Museum LA and an accomplished artist and sculptor. Gabriella, thank you so much for being with us today. Welcome.
Thank you so much for your introduction. Beautiful. I want to share my screen. I was just a young girl when the World War II started. And before the war, we lived in a peaceful Czechoslovakia. In our wildest dreams, I could not have imagined that something like this, like Holocaust, will happen, but it did. I was 8 years old, just a young girl. I was raised by my parents and my grandmother, whom I loved very, very much. When the World War II started, my grandmother used to live with us, but we had to move out from our apartment. And there was a family of Karol Blanar who took my grandmother with them, and they hid her under the name of their mother. This was our first connection with Karol Blanar's family. Their son had it in his heart hide 8 people during the biggest deportation in Slovakia. I will tell you more about it as we go along. I made a sculpture about Holocaust and also not only the 6 million people who were killed during the Holocaust, but also 5 million not Jewish people. And I wanted to show it. You see the columns represent the Jewish people. I have falling leaves from a tree because a leaf that is falling down from a tree is not alive anymore. And I have screaming faces of Jewish people. And in between, also 5 million not Jewish people who were killed. They were handicapped, courageous resistors, Christians who were politically against the Hitler regime, Jehovah's Witnesses, gypsies, and homosexuals. Altogether, 11 million people were killed. The biggest killing was done between 1942 to 1945. 4 years. Daily, 7,500 people were killed through 4 years. But what was the biggest tragedy what happened here on American soil? The September 11, about 3,000 people were killed. And this was a one-time event, a terrible tragedy. Just imagine 7,500 people killed for 4 years every day. I'm from Slovakia. 90,000 Jewish were living in Slovakia. 60,000 were deported. From 60,000 people, 230 people returned. Statistically, it means from 1,000 people, 4 people survived. That's me, about 6-year-old, a very happy child, always laughing, smiling. Here I am about 11. Nobody could make me smile. Hard times of the Holocaust. It's my parents' store. In the middle, it's my dad. On the right, my mom with me. My 10-year-old birthday party. I am on the far right. I'm the only one who survived. I lost all my friends, every one of them. My mother worked with the resistance. This gentleman was the contact to my mom. And today I continue her work. She was a brave woman. She saved hundreds and hundreds people. I'm trying to educate people what happened during the Holocaust, and it should never happen again. I was 3 years hidden in a convent by nuns. I'm a sculptor and I'm expressing my feelings in clay. You see the 3 children there, one is me, and 2 are 2 sisters. We were hidden by the nuns. The nun there was my teacher. I just received the picture. I always carried her face in my head. Karol Blanar, the son of the Blanar family, 25-year young lawyer, had it in his heart to save 8 people. In his small 1-bedroom apartment, he received from Yad Vashem this honor as a righteous person among the nations, and his parents are mentioned because they were hiding my grandmother. This is the building where I was hidden to the right. And when the Germans occupied Slovakia and went from house to house, from apartment to apartment, this is the entered in 1935 in democratic Czechoslovakia, the only democratic country in Europe. And they went from house to house and they never entered this building. It was written in the bylaws of this building in 1935. No Jew can live in this building. They knew about it. They never entered. Across the street was the Slovak Gestapo. I saw many things. I saw the two girls running on the street, being caught in front of my eyes. The convent was just 5 minutes walking from this place. I never saw them again, and I would be with them if my mother wouldn't have taken me with me. I made a sculpture about the hiding. These are the people who were with me. My mother and my father, and I was the only child to my parents. My aunt, two uncles, and two friends of my parents. And you see the German boots marching in front of the house. I saw them, they didn't see me. Karol Blanar bringing us food. He never could bring enough. Everybody was botched. We were hungry all the time. These are our last possessions. First, they took away our citizenship, and then they took away our apartments, and then our jobs. And when people arrived to the camp, and they stepped down from the train, the first thing what they took away was the last thing from home, the small luggage. 12 windows to the unforgettable past. The first window shows the Shevastika coming, but the world was silent. Kristallnacht, the night of broken glass, November 9, 1938. All over Germany and Austria, they were burning Jewish synagogues. Hundreds of them burned to ground, thousands put on fire. And they started to take Jewish men to camp. There was a window of opportunity to let children out. From this day until the World War II started. Children from age 2 to age 17. But the world did not open their gates to let them in. The only place was England. And they saved about 10,000 children. And I was going from museum to museum, and I did not see a word about it. And it bothered me. And I decided to do something about it. I made a sculpture. It's 15 feet long. I have real pictures in the windows of the train. And when I started to work and correspond with people, I was so overwhelmed with the work. And Michele, our Michele Gold, came to me and asked me, "Can I help you?" And I was so happy to hear it. And she was born in England. She had some connections, and she was getting the pictures for the train. About 600 faces we have. She was working so hard. And when I got finished with the train and she got all the pictures, we looked at each other. We had so much material to put it in a book. Michele is the author, I'm the illustrator. It was based on my sculpture. And you see the last one is a cattle car taking the parents the other way. 95% of the children never saw their parents again. We put it in a book. Actually, this is on the left, Michele, mother. She's in the first train. And this is a cover of the book. Michele is the author, I'm the illustrator. And it's an educational book about this part of Holocaust. It's after war. The train started to come home with survivors. We went every day to the railroad station, looking for a familiar face, not be able to recognize people. People looked like skeletons. And I was standing there, a young girl. I was 15 at this time. And I was thinking in myself, how can I live a normal life? A normal life after what I went through, what I see here today. And I decided in myself, Hitler did not get my body, and he will not get my soul. I will smile, and I will be happy, and I am. This is my family. 75 people who got killed in Holocaust. And this is for the rest of the 6 million people. It's about 9 feet tall. The whole thing is rotating, light is coming through. I sold it last year. It's hanging in the University of Laverne in their interface building in the entrance hall. And this is my sculpture about the past, about the Holocaust. This is about the present. Stop the hate. And this is the future. Around the globe, children holding hands, different faces, different colors. And we will have, after this pandemic, a much better world. People are already starting to be kinder to each other. The neighbors, sometimes we didn't even know them. Now we start to know them. There are people like us. Everybody is the same. And this is my sculpture about the pandemic. You see, the globe is wearing the mask. At least it should. So we get out of it. And this is my book. I am so proud of it. I just got my first sample. I'm holding it in my hands. The name is Trauma, Memory, and the Art of Survival, a Holocaust memoir. I was in Auschwitz this year in January of the liberation, 75th year liberation of Auschwitz. I went there with my grandson. I was invited, and they could bring a companion with us. And on long trips, we were about 5 days away. We were talking to each other, and Ben, one of my grandsons, who was with me, was trying to find out about my family, about our family, about the grandparents, about their siblings. Actually, he was pulling out from me everybody in the family. And on the end of the journey, he says to me, Oma, this is how they call me, you should write a book. I said, me? Yes. You may remember everything. You will remember the stories. It will be lost. Then I came home shortly after the pandemic started. And I was thinking about his words. I thought, well, this is the time to do something that will occupy me. And I won't think about anything else. I didn't start to write. The first thing what I was doing, it was like a war zone. I was like a mad woman, pulling out albums, everything, articles that was written about me, and try to kind of arrange it in an order. And about a week later, I sat down and I started to write. 12 hours a day. I couldn't stop. It was crazy. I finished the book in 2 months. Pretty heavy book. See? I'm so excited. It's done. Thank you so much for listening.
Gabriella, thank you so much. That was wonderful. Of course, I've got a host of questions for you. But before we get to the questions, I'm sure our listeners will find this almost impossible to believe that Gabriella has turned 90 years old this week. So she is a proud, and we are so proud, she's a mother, a grandmother, and most recently a great grandmother. So we congratulate you. We love you, and I have a slew of birthday messages, which hopefully I'll have time to read you out a few. But let's just, if I may, just get to a few. Oh, how gorgeous!
It's the newest.
Yes.
5-year-old.
Yes. So, Gabriella, I've got a few questions for you. The first question I'm going to ask you is, before your grandson suggested it, had you ever thought of writing a memoir?
No, never.
Okay.
Never occurred to me.
And so what was the thought process you had to make you decide to write a memoir? And my second part of the question that I've received is, what made you decide to write the memoir, and what do you hope to share with the readers that you have shared hundreds and thousands in with your talks that you've given? What do you hope to share with the readers with your memoir?
I wanted to make them understand deeply what happened after we lived a normal life, normal everyday life. how world changed, and with the details of my life, I think they will understand the terrible tragedy that happened, how we were left without people in our past because they were taken away from us. My children, my son had one set of grandparents, and this is already lucky. My husband's parents were killed. I never met them, and so on. Cousins, family. My son grew up without aunts. My cousins, and so on. So this is one part. The second part, I feel that I want to encourage people that they should be kinder. They should live a life, but they would like to live for themselves and understand that everybody wants to live in peace. There is no mother who is carrying a child that she doesn't wish a peaceful life for their children.
Thank you. That's beautiful. Another question for you, Gabriella, is what was the most challenging part of writing the book, and did you find it emotional?
Absolutely, very emotional, making me think about the past and past details. And everybody I knew who is not here. It's very emotional. But I did it. I always feel that it's not important how I feel. It's important if I can make people understand that peace in the world is the most important thing. Because it does not matter what color skin you have, what color eyes you have, what color hair you have. We are all the same people, and we don't have to love everybody, but we have to respect every person in this world. We all have the right to be here.
Absolutely. Very wisely said. We have to live our life with great respect and decency, and something that you have taught so many and people, and so many have benefited from so much that you have dedicated yourself to. The next question I have is, you said that you want readers of your book to be kind. Do you think it was kindness that led Karol Blanar, and forgive the way I pronounce his name, to hide your family at great risk for himself? Do you think that was kindness that encouraged him to do this?
Absolutely, absolutely.
Because
He had it in his heart to risk his own life. It's
because he had great challenges. It was very challenging, and he risked so much for himself and also most likely for his family in doing so, and yet he still did this.
I always wished in all my adult life to meet him again. I met him after war, but in 45 beginning, there the communists took over in Czechoslovakia. And he was a lawyer, he wrote a couple of articles saying he had to flee the country. And we got the word that he made it over the border, but then we lost track. And I started to look for him. I contacted organizations for years and years. The first thing what I did when I got a phone book in my hands, I looked for Karol Blanar. Actually, one day in Los Angeles, I was in a theater and I come out and a car was driving and I thought it was Karol Blanar. And I got so excited and I waved, I ran after the car. Well, he was driving, he didn't see me. If it was him, finally I stopped running. I felt like a little puppy running after the car. But then I again went, I asked for every phone book in the neighborhood, looking for his name. I didn't find him. One day I was talking in Los Angeles Museum here. And a gentleman came to me and said, I am very good finding people. Maybe I can help you. Because when I got my first computer, I Googled him. Anyhow, he found him. He lived in Dublin, Ohio. And but he died in 1980, so a long time after I could have seen him. It was about 30 years. And he was buried in Columbus, Ohio, in an unmarked grave. I got very upset. I called the cemetery and I asked them, what happened? And they told me, they looked through the books. Nobody was there, only the priest when they buried him. Nobody paid. That's it. I said, no, that's not it. I'm ordering a marker right now. And when they were putting the marker in the earth, I went there with my grandson, Tad. He's the older brother of Ben. He had a video camera. And if you want to hear my goodbye speech, you go on my website, it's there. We were shoveling earth on the marker. In spite it was not a Jewish cemetery, but we put rocks on the marker. And it's written on it, righteous person among the nations.
Thank you. Thank you, Gabriella. You know, going back to you being in hiding, could you share a little of when you were in the convent, the experience of being in the convent and the kindness of the nuns? And, you know, one question that often comes up is, did the nuns try to convert you to Christianity?
No, because I had papers that I am Christian, so they thought I am converted.
So they thought you had, but they treated you with great kindness as well, didn't
yes,
they? Yes.
They were really very nice to me. Actually, I went back last year. I went many, many times back, but last year, USC Shoah Foundation is doing a documentary about me, and a crew of 7 people were already waiting for me. And for 3 days, we were going around. We went to the convent. The archivist brought hundred of pictures. Asked me, maybe you can recognize yourself. But I didn't. I didn't find myself. But I found the nun who was my teacher. And I said, oh, this is Angelica. I had her face in my head. And she had no idea. She was a young nun. She went to search and she said, oh, you are right. This is Angelica. Well, I knew. So it was amazing, actually. We also went back to the apartment, but I tried many times. Each time I went to Bratislava, I tried to get inside the apartment. I wanted to see it again. And it was a security building now, but I got in. I always convince somebody. I'm not a robber. And they let me in. And I came to the door and I rang the bell and nobody opened. Many times. Now we came with all these cameras, with all these people carrying stuff, 7 and me and the director. He spoke Slovak. He's from Czech Republic. He's actually the head of Shoah Foundation in Prague. And we rang the bell and a lady opened. So we asked her to let us come in, and she said, oh, this is not my apartment. It's my son's. I have to ask him. So she calls. She said, oh, no problem. Let them in. So we go in. And I'm looking around, and everything is there like I remembered. And then I went to kitchen, and apparently I didn't spend too much in the kitchen because I never thought about the kitchen. And I go farther, and then I remembered it. There was a tiny little, like 1 yard by 1 yard patio. And I was very sick the last months. And we had to call a doctor from the underground. And he said, you cannot close up a 14-year-old child and expect to thrive. She said, she won't make it. Another 2 months, she won't be here. She needs sun, she needs fresh air. So what we did, we put a little blanket in this 1 yard by 1 yard, tiny little kitchen patio. It was closed from the side. And I crawled in and I lay there a little bit, getting fresh air. So this minute I remembered it. I never thought about it. I thought because what I was reading, this is what I was doing, 14 hours a day. Can you imagine sitting on a chair for 14 hours to read, not talking? We tried not to go to bathroom. We didn't flush a toilet because neighbors might can hear it. And if we knew he went to the bathroom, he went to work. So when he came home, we could flush, and we still were keeping very quiet. But a little bit better was when he came home. So, but we didn't talk. And I was reading. And guess what? After liberation, I made a test. I jumped a grade. I learned so much with reading. Yes. Actually, I was the youngest person in the class still. I started a year earlier, and I was not yet 6, because my birthday is in November and there was a cutoff line. But I convinced the director that I will fit in. School was across the street, and I walked over by myself and find the director. I said, my friend is going. She is a little bit older, a couple of months. I will do it. I will be. And I gave a speech. She was impressed. And I got into the school a year earlier, and then I jumped a grade. So I was 15 when I started a special school. It was fashion design and business administration. And I graduated. I was 17. All the other girls were 21, 22. I was still the youngest. And I got the award. Yeah.
And Gabriella, now going towards the artistic side of you, one question that's come up a few times here is, do you have any formal training as an artist, or are you self-taught?
I never did any sculptures. I was 62. I retired. I was home 3 weeks. Wake up one morning. I decided I'm going back to school because I want to do a 3-dimensional art, and I have no idea how to do it. I didn't have a good teacher. He was discouraging me, actually. We had a model in the center of the room, and sometimes nude. And he expects us to do what we see. And I wanted to do what I feel. And he did not understand it. So you want something impossible. Each time he passed me, you're again doing something impossible. But this is what I want to do, okay? Only one, my very first sculpture, what I did in the class is more realistic. And then I decided, that's it. I don't want to work like that. It's not for me. So I was there. I stayed in the class for a year. I went to Israel for a vacation. I have a good friend, a sculptor, and I took some pictures and I showed it to him and I said, tell me your opinion. Should I continue or should I drop it? And he said, I suggest you stay home, struggle through yourself. And I did. I listened. So this is my training.
So the next question I have for you could be twofold, because it might actually go hand in hand with another question. And this question is, what inspires you to continue sculpting? And the reason I say hand in hand, because the question is, what inspires you to continue sculpting? And the next question I have that possibly could be a link is, how do you deal with any memory fading during the years? So is your sculpting your way of your memory? You actually express your experiences in your memory through your sculpture. How does it inspire you?
Well, actually, when I started, I did not do anything about Holocaust. It was children at play, lovers, mother and child. This is what I started with. There was a trial in London, David Irving. He was denying the Holocaust, and it upset me very much. And I decided I will do something visual because there is so much word. I would like to people see what happened. And I made the first sculpture. It's about the Holocaust in general. And then it was so hard. I put my heart in it. It was very, very hard on me. I thought I will never do another one. Then one day I was thinking, well, I should show about the hiding, and then another one, and another one, and I don't even know how many I have. I just finished one last week.
Thank you. And you have many, many, many. An interesting question is, when and why did you decide to come to America?
Oh, that's a good question. Well, my parents wanted to leave in 1939 when after the Kristallnacht. I remember my mother went to Prague to do something, and she came back. She was very upset. Looking back, I thought maybe she wanted to put me on the Kindertransport, because now that we were working on the book, I found a group across the street, children who went on the Kindertransport, just across the street of my father's store. And it's possible because she was very upset and they started to teach me English. So this is what I'm thinking. I never asked, we never talked about it. So this is, we wanted to leave, that's for sure. Then in 45, we couldn't leave. The gates were not open. We didn't have a family in United States, but my mother wanted to come here. So in 48, Israel became Israel. I just got married. My husband said, I'm going to Israel. Actually, he asked me to get married and that he wants to go to Israel. Let's go together. So we got married in real hurry. And we were there about 11 years, 10 years. And my mother wanted to go visit United States, and she met some friends. She came back. It took her 2 years to persuade us to come to United States. We came on a working visa. My friends find us jobs here. This
is how you...
Yeah. And I was a fashion designer all my life. I worked here by big companies. I was working for Lens. I'm sure some older people remember the place. I was there 15 years. Then I was in the other big company, 17 years.
Thank you.
Until I retired.
And I think we have time for one more question, and that's going to be from our dear friend, Marion Liebel, who wishes you a very, very happy birthday. And her question is, how do you think educators should approach the future when memory becomes history and there are fewer and fewer survivors to tell first-person stories?
Well, the only thing what we will have are the stories we are telling now. And I'm sure everyone living today is filmed one place or another, what will be a tool to continue. Second generation can talk. Third generation about exodus, what happened. It's what we can do.
Thank you. So, you know, I'm going to spend the last few minutes, I'm going to read you out a few birthday congratulations that you've received. And Joel Heiser says, please say happy birthday with love from Joel and Laura. We love you, Gabriella. Helen Isaacson says, please extend my very warmest wishes to you, Gabriella.
Thank you. Thank you.
Few of them here.
Hopefully this thing is over and we can meet.
And Hannah Moran, congratulations to you, Gabriella. Thank you for the memories. And Avia Farkas, no questions, just a lot of gratitude for Gabriella. Eleanor Soloway, happy birthday and mazel tov. And Myrta Lipsack, who I believe is one of our beloved docents, co-docent, says this was terrific and it's an honor. And thank you. So I think before we close, we're going to ask you one final question, and that is, because of your extensive experience and how you've reached and touched so many near and far, if you had a message, what would your message be for the future generations?
Be kinder.
I think that's perfect. I concur with you. I concur. You know, thank you. Thank you for sharing yourself with us. Thank you for being here today and for all your insights, all your wisdom and all your achievements. We applaud you and we thank you. And for all our listeners today, please know Gabriella's book can be pre-ordered on her website. And her website is www.gabriella with 2 L's Karin.com/store. And I think on that same website, you'll be able to hear her speech. Is that correct, Gabriella? The speech that you spoke about earlier.
Yes.
It's
yes.
on the same website, is it? So so that's her website. Thank you so much, and thank you to all of us for being with you today. Before we sign off, I would like to invite everyone to join us next Tuesday, November 24th at 11 a.m. Pacific for a talk by Dr. Lisa Grunberg, who is the author of My City of Dreams, a second-generation Holocaust memoir that she was inspired to write after her elderly father began having flashbacks to his life as a child in the 1930s in Vienna. And following that, a couple of weeks later, on December 1st at 11 a.m. Pacific, please join us as we mark World Kindertransport Day by speaking with Kindertransport survivor Paul Kester and Barbara Winton, who is the daughter of Kindertransport rescuer Sir Nicholas Winton. Sir Nicholas Winton arranged for the safe transport of 669 children from Czechoslovakia to Great Britain. And for more information on this and all our virtual events, please visit our website at holocaustmuseumla.org. So again, thank you, Gabriella, and thank you to everyone for joining us today. Take care, keep well, be safe, and hopefully we see you all again soon. Bye-bye, everyone, and take care.